Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. Last 1 year, 2019, has been very productive on the foreign policy front, and there were many challenges as well as many opportunities if we talk about Pakistan's foreign policy. To start with, Afghanistan, a very important neighbor, a neighbor which has been fighting this war for the last 19 years. It has been a country which has been disturbed, ravaged by a war. We have seen that with Taliban, the Kabul government, US forces and the NATO forces have been fighting for the control over Afghanistan. Pakistan was instrumental in bringing peace and stability somewhat in Afghanistan. Pakistan has also been facilitating the talks between the Taliban and the US. The talks that we see in Qatar, in Doha. We're going to talk about that. Also, the issue of Kashmir is one of the most important issues when we talk about Pakistan's foreign policy. Kashmir has been an issue in South Asia between Pakistan and India as well. And Pakistan's primary stance is to have peace and stability in the region. And for that, peace in Kashmir is of vital interest to Pakistan. The way Indian forces have been committing atrocities in Indian-occupied Kashmir has been a major concern for Pakistan. And through a letter that was written by Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Pakistan, with the support of our friends, China for that matter, brought up this issue in the Security Council. And for the first time, after almost 50 years, Kashmir was discussed in the Security Council. And this is something that is very important. Kashmir being discussed in the Security Council, the impact, we'll discuss that later. But the importance is that it was discussed. Before that, we see that very few countries were discussing about the issue of Kashmir. That is very important. The way Pakistan has been active in Middle East is very important. Our foreign policy over there, Pakistan as a peace builder, Pakistan as a bridge between countries to bring peace and stability in Middle East is also of vital interest to Pakistan. We have seen a war in Afghanistan, and another conflict in the region can actually just ravage the idea of peace in Pakistan and also in the region. Pakistan stands for peace and stability, and having peace in the Middle East is very important. The shuttle diplomacy that we saw of our very active, I would say, Foreign Minister, Prime Minister himself, Pakistan's top officials have been visiting all the countries, actively visiting Iran for that matter, visiting Saudi Arabia was very important, and these two countries are strategically and otherwise very close and Pakistan's strong partners. We're going to discuss about all this, Pakistan's foreign policy, on the foreign policy front, the challenges that are there, and how can we improve, let's say, our performance on the foreign policy front with our special guest in the studios. Our first guest is Ambassador Shahid Kiani, renowned senior diplomat and expert on Pakistan's foreign policy. He has served Pakistan in various countries, so welcome to the show. Our second guest is Brigadier Saeed Nazir, a renowned senior analyst on Pakistan's national security and regional politics as well, Pakistan's relations with India as well as Afghanistan. So welcome to the show. Our third guest is Professor Dr. Umar Hayat Abbasi, a renowned senior academic and expert on international relations and also on Pakistan's foreign policy. And Dr. Hayat has wide experience of Middle East as well as South Asia. And he has been lecturing in all these universities in Middle East and South Asia. Welcome to the show, Dr. Abbasi. Ambassador Kiani, starting with Pakistan's foreign policy, the challenges that have been there for Pakistan. We made new alliances, we have been strengthening our alliances. The challenges have been there, as I was just discussing in my introduction. How do you see the strengths, the weaknesses and the opportunities for Pakistan and the foreign policy domain?
First, I would like to start with one of the most serious challenge which the Pakistan security, because security is very much aligned with the foreign policy, was the developments in the post-Pulwama attack, and the attack on the incident of post-Pulwama, the attack on Balakot, and the way the Prime Minister, both the political and the military leadership dealt with this issue in a very deft manner, in a very matured manner. And that is even though we could see the intervention of the United States, we have to appreciate the intervention. The things were brought down. We showed the maturity in the face of a very serious challenge to Pakistan's sovereignty, and that was applauded because Pakistan and India are nuclear states, and people have been saying to us that we are irresponsible nuclear states. In that aspect, I could say India was proved to be an irresponsible nuclear state, because without any proof in the post-Pulwama, Pakistan was attacked, and India learnt a very a lesson that undermining Pakistan's sovereignty will not go unpunished. Yeah. So, but the way we dealt with it, I think the Pakistan showed maturity in face of a very serious challenge. So this is something which we have been able to send the message. Coming back to other challenges in this 2019, one could see the Afghan talks, which has been going on in Doha off and on. And what has happened is, the turnaround is that Pakistan was blamed for a very long time, especially by President Trump and his security advisors, that Pakistan is not cooperating with the United States in bringing the Taliban to the table. I think one thing I'll just briefly say, the Americans and others, and especially people who are watching, who are experts in Afghanistan, do not understand that Pakistan does not have that much of influence with the Taliban, which we had maybe 10 years back. Right. And Taliban are known to be very independent. But nevertheless, Pakistan played a very vital role in encouraging the Taliban to come to the negotiating table, and one could see a very positive. We are expecting a positive outcome of that.
We'll discuss about all these areas that we have just discussed in detail. Of course, India and Afghanistan. But since you talked about India, so we'll go with this neighbor first. Brigadier Nazir, talking about India, as very rightly said, I would say, by Ambassador Kenny, that the maturity that Pakistan showed after this post-Pulwama thing, when Commander Abhinandan was captured, he was returned, maturity that we want peace and stability. Now, India also knows that this conventional warfare is something that is not their cup of tea. They cannot win in that domain. How do you see the way Pakistan dealt with this aggression and the way we are dealing it with now, and the things that are happening inside India at the moment?
Thank you indeed. As far as the Pulwama attack is concerned and its aftermath, of course, India has always been flagging all these false flag operations. And somehow or the other, they used to make Pakistan a scapegoat. And that was a sort of, they were playing to the guilty, especially for taking the votes. And Pakistan bashing is their favorite topics or their favorite theme. And what they did after the Pulwama attack, straightway blaming Pakistan. Otherwise, the boy who was involved in that, he was in their custody. And he believed himself being a Kashmiri, because Kashmiri has been reduced to almost, and later on the things have proved that what India was up to. But the way they took Pakistan for a ride by attacking its north, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Balakot, and then probably digesting it, they were in a misconception. And probably they challenge a wrong, you can say, tiger. And the next day, on a broad daylight, the way our Air Force responded and the way they played their skills, I suppose that was marvelous. And that very wound which they have taken, they will be licking it for quite some time. But at the same time, I must say that the way they embark upon then jingoism and the 5th August of the integration of Kashmir and abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, that is really throwing outside, rather throwing away all the international laws, as well as the agreements which were there, or the resolution of United Nations, and that with Pakistan as well, similar agreement, everything they threw it out of the window. And that is the irresponsible approach adopted by the Modi government. Well, but that could have been a casus belli for Pakistan. But Pakistan showed restraint, and that restraint is still working. Otherwise, it was an act of war.
Rightly said, but how to deal with such kind of an aggressive neighbor, Dr. Abbasi? Prime Minister Imran Khan at UNGA, in his speech, very comprehensive speech, I would say, he talked about, and he exposed rather the nexus of BJP with RSS and Shiv Sena. That was unprecedented. No, I would say, Pakistan leader before Prime Minister Imran Khan has talked about or exposed RSS and Shiv Sena the way Prime Minister Imran Khan did. Now the world actually knows what RSS and Shiv Sena is and their nexus with BJP, and also this comparison of the Nazi forces of the Nazi time Germany and RSS and Shiv Sena. This kind of a neighbor and our foreign policy towards an aggressive fascist government, as Prime Minister Imran Khan has been calling himself, the Modi government. How do you see it? How can we deal with these people?
Well, first of all, Taimur, thank you very much. My understanding was that we'll be talking more on foreign policy and diplomacy, but what my friends
That all
here,
comes in under the ambit of what we are discussing. You
true,
can only
but
discuss that.
what I'm trying to say now is that when we talk about foreign policy, I'm sorry, and diplomacy, there is a problem with us that we have India-centric, India-specific mindset. And that is haunting us, and we are overwhelmed with that. Remember, there are more 190 other countries in the world, and they can be our strategic partner. And we can follow and we can practice diplomacy and foreign policy across the globe. This is one problem. Why is it India-specific, India-centric? I would not disagree that India is not an aggressive neighbor and that India should not be at the center of our diplomatic agenda. Very well, I agree with that, but what about the rest of the world? One. Two is, if you allow me to say, there are some problems that I want to highlight because I think in Pakistan's foreign policy and diplomacy, all is not well. There are a few illusions that we're living in, and I want to highlight that. One is religion. So we have linked religion somehow in our foreign policy. Remember, in international relation, practicing international relation and practice, religion is irrelevant. And for that, I'll give you an example of how India is establishing religion in the Middle East too. We also have good relationship in Middle East. But Middle Eastern Muslim countries have very good relationships with India too. So that tells that religion is irrelevant. Second, when are in diplomacy or in Pakistan's foreign policy,
allow me. But how do you think on this religion point that Pakistan has been using religion, as you're saying, on the foreign policy front?
No, we have an illusion.
Islamic
what I'm referring
Republic,
to
so
is an illusion in the policy making mindset. This is an illusion that needs to be cleared, that needs to be addressed. Right. Okay. Second problem is that our diplomacy, even if we focus with India, Pakistan's foreign policy, we see one thing common, and that really disturbs me, and I've said that number of times. There is an action-reaction syndrome. India does something, we react. India does something, we react. One. And then, if we refer to our relationship with the Western world and the US, our foreign policy is focused on actually blames that come from the West, and we have to be reactive or we have to be responsive against those blames.
Right.
Can't we just go beyond that and have a proactive diplomacy, knowledge-based diplomacy? Allow me, I'll give you an example. So we need to build the capacity of our diplomats, the capacity of foreign office officials and our ambassadors and diplomatic staff and different parts of the world. What is the problem? How we can build their capacity is because our diplomacy is using traditional mechanism, and there is no let me tell you this, there is no input from academics on institutional level. They will say, oh, there are people who are writing papers, they're doing that, but there is no knowledge-based diplomacy. I'll give you an example.
But I think this too is debatable because if you ask the, we have Master Kenny over here, and we'll be discussing about this, that there is input from the academics as well, but maybe
no,
you can say that not enough, perhaps.
Well, I give you modus operandi. How do we do that? Wait a second, Taimur. There is a way. I mean, can't we simply do one seminar or an event in Parliament House or in Prime Minister's Secretariat where your Prime Minister of the country listens to the academics, the professors of economy, the professors of politics? Can't we simply do that? We're not doing it. So as long as the world has moved to another stage, it's knowledge-based economy, it's knowledge-based diplomacy, and that has to be institutional.
Interestingly, a Prime Minister himself has an advisory committee which has number of academics and professors from big universities in
Let me be
Islamabad,
critical about
Lahore,
it.
Karachi,
Let
all
me
over,
be-
interestingly.
Let me be critical about it.
Yeah.
Let me be
So-
critical about it. Here's the thing. So advisory councils and advisory bodies, there is something called, which is called pick and choose. So pick and choose always comes
so
with a
this-
certain
then
drawbacks.
this
Let me
debate,
tell you. Let me
Professor-
tell you. Let's be practical. You know, we have to talk about the betterment of our foreign policy. We have to talk about how we can improve our foreign policy. So I would very I can convince you on that this pick and choose and advisory councils has problems too. So what needs to be done is to objectively listen to the people. Forget about the advisory council. Can't we have 1 week or 1 day that we can listen to the economics for 2 hours or 3
These
hours
are
or 4 hours?
interesting points, and I would like other panelists to comment on this, because even this pick and choose would be debatable. A lot of officials would also be contesting this very idea of pick and choose, because the people that we have in that committee are very, I would say,
No, I don't undermine their
active academics,
competence.
but of
Let me
course,
tell
I
you,
got your
don't
point that
undermine
it
their
should be
competence.
active.
Yeah.
We're going to continue our discussion on Pakistan's foreign policy. Last 1 year, this is a roundup of Pakistan achievements as well as the challenges that are there for Pakistan on the foreign policy front. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're discussing Pakistan's foreign policy, the achievements in 2019 and the challenges. Ambassador Kiani, we just heard Dr. Abbasi, his points. What do you think about this?
Let me say to you, he has a point that the inputs of the academics should also be reflected into the foreign policy. But there are problems, there are challenges. And let me share to you, Institute of Strategic Studies is an academic arm of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I have also been contributing, going there, listening to him. Recently, there was a very fine debate on what we have to do with Africa. You see, we have not been interacting or doing our, trade and economic relationship with Africa lags behind what we have done in Europe. So we are now possibly on the right path. The issue is that we do continue to take inputs from the academics. We have a policy planning division in the ministry also. You look at our foreign minister, keeps on going to many seminars around the country and he listens to them. But there is a challenge. We are not fully economically sovereign. That puts limits to our, the way we need to operate, and we need to, do what we want to do. So our desires at times do not meet the constraints which we have. Look what happened, this whole thing in the Kuala Lumpur episode. There are a lot of criticism on that, but the challenge was that our economic constraints has puts limits on, not that we are short of ideas, not that we do not want to listen to the academics. I'm myself a part-time academic, but these are things which we need to look at, and we would, I think, as the time moves on, as things improve in the country, because if you look at 1.5 years of this government, right from the 1 year has been taken off. The focus of this government has been on what happened in India, in the occupied Kashmir, and the challenges which puts on us. So I think we will be in the right path maybe the next few months.
Right.
Now coming down to, I'd like to just comment on another part is our relationship in the neighborhood. Apart from India, our relationship with Iran and with Saudi Arabia, I was reading this, and what we have been doing is that the shuttle diplomacy, bit of shuttle diplomacy by our Prime Minister to Saudi Arabia and Iran. I think what we need to do is that the differences between Saudi Arabia and Iran are so wide, and the relationship between these two countries have been adversarial for the last now many decades. I think what we need to do is develop our relationship with both these countries in the spirit of bilateral relationship strong, without trying to mediate, because what we have done is, if we can keep the relationship with these two countries strong and trust, we need to develop our trust, I think we will be in the right path. Right. And because one is a neighbor, Iran, the other one, we have spiritual and economic and political relations be strong. I think we need to continue to do this thing without saying that we can mediate. I think the mediation is a very difficult world. It's a very difficult challenge. We have seen the last few months or few weeks that it doesn't work.
And Brigadier Nazir, international experts have been watching this, the way Pakistan has been working with Iran as well as with Saudi Arabia. And Pakistan, along with other countries like Oman in the Middle East, have been instrumental in bringing and bridging, I would say, the gap between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Prime Minister himself has been very vocal about this thing, that he has been visiting both countries and trying to bridge the gaps that are there. This diplomacy between Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan's role, how do you see it?
Well, as far as the two countries are concerned, as Ambassador Kiani has already said, that one is a neighbor and another is a very strong ally of Pakistan on respect. And naturally, we owe a lot to Saudi Arabia, especially in our defense need, as well as in our foreign debts, and as well as being the center of gravity of the Muslim Ummah, that is Saudi Arabia, and mostly a very strong country in the Gulf and GCC. So all those heavyweights attached to it, it's make it one of the, you can say, pillar around which we are supposed to be very strongly knitted and connected. That is one aspect. But another aspect is that probably what happened in the Kuala Lumpur summit, before that, I suppose, as diplomacy, our diplomatic corps is the outer post of Pakistan. And it is supposed to be foreseeing the things and supposed to be analyzing that what will be the outcome and the blowbacks, and mostly how to do the diplomacy between the two impossibles to make up something possible. Right. That is the way, that is the diplomatic language or diplomatic overtures. But I'm sorry to say in that we have not been all that you can say promising. Otherwise, this diplomatic shot which we got in our arm, it would have not been done. That was one aspect. Right. The second aspect was that 5th of August, once Modi integrated Kashmir. So before that, our Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister were having meeting with Mr. Trump. And there he said, I will be mediating on Kashmir. But before that, probably in March and February, the things were in the air that something big is coming on Kashmir. And that was the integration of Kashmir. So we should have made a diplomatic maneuver all around the world, so that to aware the people proactively that what's happening there, so that to restrain India from that. Probably that was also a pitfall. And third thing is that we have not gone after 5th of August an unconventional diplomacy, because conventional diplomacy is not going to work, and it is so far has not restrained India for doing what they are doing on the FATF, the way they are doing their diplomacy and strangulating Pakistan. Then is, of course, in the lawfare is one of the aspects which should be added to our diplomacy, because how to deal with what is happening in Kashmir, that is whether it is a human rights violation,
Right.
it is ethnic cleansing, or it is genocide.
But the way
so all these things
Pakistan-
are coming
up. But you're right. But the thing is that the way Pakistan brought up the issue of Kashmir, that is also unprecedented. The way outside the Indian High Commissions, people gathered up, even in London, they protested. The way Kashmir has also become an international issue. We see New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, all the newspapers in India, Pakistan, in many other countries are just full of news about Kashmir, editorials of New York Times for that matter, Security Council discussing about all these things. But having taken into account what you are saying, Brigadier Nazir, I would put this question to Dr. Abbasi. We also opened Kartarpur corridor this year. While this is going on, there's tension with India, there's aggression from the Indian side, Trump talking about mediation and President Trump talking about mediation in Kashmir, rebuffed by India. We still opened the Kartarpur corridor because we think that people should come and go. And what you were discussing earlier, that very element of religion for that matter was very important. These are six, I would say, they have their sacred place, their site in Punjab, in Pakistani Punjab. They should come in, they should visit this place, and this can benefit both countries for that matter. This move and this opening, how do you see it?
See, there's three important points. I hope you allow me to complete my argument. One is, you see Kartarpur corridor from the spectacles of religion, Sikhism or Sikh religion. I wouldn't. I'd see from the spectacles of neighborhood. So we need to have good relationship with our neighbors, regardless of the religion, whether that is on eastern or the western side, or whatever side that is. Okay, so I would see from a different perspective. One, and I would definitely appreciate that's positive, that's appreciable foreign policy initiative and gesture that Pakistan has done, and opening of Kartarpur corridor. And
So
that
you
is
consider
what
this
there
as
is a
a
lesson
positive
for our
step?
neighbors, including India, to learn on how to establish good relationship with neighbors. I completely agree with that. Two is, now, I have with me in the panel today an ambassador and Brigadier Saeed, who is an expert on security, and I'm sure he has an input in the policy making. So here's the problem, what I want to highlight, the mindset, the policy making mindset. Here's the thing. My friend, ambassador sitting here says we have economic constraints. Therefore, we have this kind of foreign policy. We have these allies. Okay, question. Did our economic situation improve following the same policy with the same allies? No. We are economically not stable. So does not this say or suggest that we need to part ways from conventional approach of diplomacy and foreign policy? Or we need to continue? If we continue, our economic situation is going to stay as it is. So there is a way. Kuala Lumpur Summit, allow me please. For instance, Kuala Lumpur Summit was a good opportunity to part ways. So if we have to take care of our relationship with Saudi Arabia, remember that is because of American influence on Saudi Arabia and indirect influence on foreign policy. What I'm trying to say is, there's a problem in the policy making mindset and the policy formulation and the diplomacy when it is executed in different missions. Allow me, what is the problem with us? Now, we need to part ways from traditional approach, and that needs capacity building, and also we need to give space to the younger people, younger diplomats, younger ambassadors, younger generation who understands the dynamics of 21st century. Well, we can definitely get benefit from our senior elderly people like ambassadors sitting here. But what is needed is that we need to give this to the people who understand the dynamics of 21st century are quite different. And listen, allow me please. What happened in November 2019, you can't redo it in December 2019. You need a different state of mind in December 2019. Countries and the societies who follow this kind of practice and their policy and their diplomacy, they have future. But if we are redoing things because of this constraint or that constraint or this weight or that weight, that's not gonna give us any kind of benefit.
But that's right. These issues are there. well, we can go into these issues as well. By the way, what Morgan talked about, this single factor theory, interestingly, Russia has an economy smaller than Italy. But the way strategically they play in the world, we see that.
Yeah.
Also because of their proactive diplomacy, their own character, and the way they want to play this whole thing. But having said that, talking about these issues that have been there, the countries that we have been dealing with, Ambassador Kenny, Afghanistan has been an issue for the last 18, 19 years, the way we have been directly, indirectly affected by the war in Afghanistan. How do you see it, the way Pakistan has been dealing with the Afghan government, with the Taliban, and with the US? Because this is a very, I would say, interesting case study in which we are dealing with three actors.
Yeah.
How do you see it?
Let me first say what Dr. Saab has criticized the way we handle care. There is absolutely no doubt, because so much has been written in the newspaper and continue to be written. I think we should not have, I think everybody agrees that we should not have made a commitment, especially in New York, which we couldn't follow. I think everybody knows about it. And what comes out, I think we've been reading it, is that either we can do a very highly, criticize the government for what it's done. I think government knows about it. And governments do make course corrections. I think economic constraint has been one of the serious issues which has dogged, which has been a big obstacle to this government, I'm telling you. And looks like maybe 1 year, if we are living 1 year from now, I think things will definitely improve. We might have an elbow room to move around.
Right.
And about Afghanistan, I think about Afghanistan, Pakistan it is in Pakistan's interest that stability should return to Afghanistan. Basically, people don't understand, for the last 19 years, a civil war is going on in Afghanistan. Taliban and the other, the government which is
yes.
incumbent government there, and Taliban, good or for bad, they have a large chunk of land in Afghanistan which they are occupying, and this is for them, this is what is the bargaining chip when they talks, and they are holding the talks in Qatar. Now unfortunately there is something which the Americans have not been able to understand. While they are approaching us and we are helping them, encouraging the Taliban to hold talks, what the Americans have done, I think this is a serious blunder. They're encouraging Indians to have a larger say in the affairs in Afghanistan. Now, for whatever reason, this is an elephant in the relationship between Pakistan and India. Now, whenever Pakistan and India would restart their discussions, I think one of the issues which the Pakistan Indian leaders will have to tackle with is Afghanistan. What is, we would like to know, and the Indians can ask us, we have to come to an understanding as to how we will deal with Afghanistan. Because the destabilizing Afghanistan is not in the interest of Pakistan. India does not have a border with Afghanistan. Maybe fortunately, unfortunately, but we have a border with Afghanistan. We have, while for 40 years, the people of Afghanistan have suffered and continue to suffer. We have about nearly 3 million Afghan refugees in our country.
Right.
Our economy suffers. We can have, when the things were okay, we had about $3 billion worth of trade. We do not have. Then we have a security problem because of the porous border of Afghanistan. So we have many things. So it is in Pakistan interest to have a stable Afghanistan, and that's why we are encouraging the Taliban. One other thing, this is now grudgingly accepted by the White House, the State Department, the Pentagon, and the CIA, others, that Pakistan continues to play a very positive role in trying to bring stability and peace in Afghanistan.
Right. Brigadier Nazir, Afghanistan specifically, I know you're personally very interested in the Afghan affairs. These three actors primarily, the Taliban, the US, and the Kabul government. Pakistan has been dealing with all of these three actors. And one more, the spoiler, that is India in Afghanistan. These three actors, dealing with them in 2019, how do you see that? And in future, what have we learned, and how can we deal with them in future?
Of course, it has been a long haul, almost 19 years. And we had been neighbors, but at the same time, we have also been the whipping boys. And it has been hot and cold with America. And their failures were also dumped on Pakistan. So that was a very difficult way to deal with the security situation on one front. And then the diplomatic, you can say, our jockey was also riding that horse, which was not very tamed, especially regarding Afghanistan. And that was the American bandwagon which we joined. But at the same time, once America was getting a bloody nose in Afghanistan, then they were blaming Pakistan at the same time. More so,
And I remember when
diplomatically,
our top officials and our former Prime Minister also said that Pakistan would not become the scapegoat in Afghanistan.
yes,
I remember those words.
that is one thing. And more so, that was a mistake that on the part of America and especially the Western forces, that they were thinking that the Afghanistan battle could be fought in Pakistan. It is not possible. Second thing is that we were India-centric, but we became the Afghanistan-centric as well on the security aspect, for the reason that it became an existential threat for Pakistan, because the way the things were going in Afghanistan, all those surge and everything failed, and naturally the fallout was on Pakistan. Pakistan being a neighbor and at the same time connected in many ways to Afghanistan. That was another aspect. So we had been through a very, you can say, boggy ground. We have also mapped all that marsh which was there. But at the same time, I suppose on Afghanistan front, we have delivered on peace, and we have delivered on stability, and we have delivered on our own security as well. These are the three major aspects. As far as the game spoiler role is concerned, the peace coming into Afghanistan through dialogue, and of course that is the only solution to the Afghanistan imbroglio, that the dialogue, the peace talk should succeed by all counts. We have been engaged with the opposition in Afghanistan, we have been engaged with the government, and we have been also been joking with the Americans, good and bad.
Right.
But at the same time, once the peace will prevail in Afghanistan, it will be in the foremost interest of Pakistan, because Pakistan is directly affected of that
By the
peace
war,
and
yes.
mayhem there. Second thing is that the perception which has been created in Afghanistan through the game spoiler or their propaganda, automatically by implication or by the design, the Pakistan will gain more face and more good perception, and India will of course recede on that ground. That's why they are still, because President Trump were asking India to play their roles, and what role they have played, only he was talking of a library which has been built there. So
yes.
we have got that relation of blood with Afghanistan, whereas India has got that relation of bricks and you can say steel and all those buildings which they are making. So that cannot be matched.
Cannot be-
Of course, we should, one thing, last comment I will make, that I suppose it is time for our diplomatic corps,
Right.
as well as our policy makers, that we should de-hyphenate ourselves from Pak India to a Pak Central Asia. That will be probably a new approach for our future to come.
Right. Dr. Basit, your take on this, Pakistan's diplomacy, the way, in Afghanistan specifically, the way we have improved our relations, countering the anti-Pakistan sentiment over there, of course, which has been fanned by the spoilers, by the India itself, that's very evident. We have been giving scholarships, inviting scholars from Afghanistan. Our universities are open to them. We have opened a hospital there in Kabul, and a lot of other initiatives that we have taken. Pakistan-Afghanistan relations and our foreign policy towards Afghanistan, how do you see that?
See, first of all, I want to talk about US-Taliban peace talks. And I've said that a number of times. Question, was our role in US-Taliban peace talks literally our role? Or that was because of some diplomatic compulsions? And that, as Brigadier Sahib very rightly said, because we were blamed that we are supporting terrorists. And the terrorists that we were blamed
But this blame
are,
game is not new. This
I
has
mean,
been
that's,
going on
yeah, very true.
since
So
2006
our effort to actually address that blame, or our effort is focused on maintaining peace and order in Afghanistan, because peaceful Afghanistan ensures peaceful Pakistan and peaceful South Asia. So what was our focus? That's a serious
Peace, of
question
course.
that we
I
need.
think-
yes.
yeah, so we can
for
discuss that. Peace
we'll
was our
have to,
focus.
yes, we'll have to now continue working on maintaining peace and order in Afghanistan. If we are able to do that, I would not like to give a timeline like in next month, 6 months or 7 months or 1 year. We have to continue our efforts, diplomatic efforts, or whatever it takes in our limited capacity or capability that actually will lead or gradually improves the peace and stability in Afghanistan. That's what is needed. That's how I see too. You know, a very quick comment on generally the Pakistan's foreign policy and diplomacy. So we had to actually choose, or we were trying to maintain balance between our relationship with Saudi Arabia and Iran. But KL summit actually resulted in compromising our relationship with Malaysia, with Turkey, with Iran, with Qatar. So if you consider Malaysia one country, let me tell you diplomatically, I've lived in that region.
Right.
Malaysia is ASEAN. So we are actually not going beyond, and the ASEAN is an entire region that can boost our economy, and we can, you know, we can have our outreach in ASEAN region. Why are we ignoring that? That's a serious question.
But I think when it comes to this is certainly for the policymakers to actually explain what happened in Kuala Lumpur summit, but at the same time, the interaction that we have had with the officials and the information that we have, it is also very important to tell you this, that when it comes to Pakistan-Malaysia relationship, it is strong. Such kind of options are there. Of course, some choices are hard choices, and you make those choices. But all these countries, Malaysia, Iran, Turkey, Qatar, they realize Pakistan's limitations, and we also realize their limitations and our relations with Saudi Arabia. So this was certainly a tricky business. This was a tricky thing. But one more thing that what I can tell you is in next month and a half, things are going to improve. And Pakistan would certainly be given credit for that.
Well, definitely things must
front.
improve.
So,
and you know, this suggests that we need to probably part our ways from our traditional approach. And we need to have a capacity building, a change in the state of mind and the mindset, let me tell you. So that's very, very important. Right. We have to change our state of mind.
Very short comment.
Can I just say, because we do not have the time, I will just quickly say something to you. My God.
Right.
So sorry.
Okay.
No, quickly. I think this is in 2020, what I am looking at it is, I've been saying this for a long time, let the Prime Minister of Pakistan visit the neighboring countries, and starting with Iran, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. Why? In Maldives. Because India has been selling its narrative about us. True. That is the reason SAARC has not been revived, SAARC summit. I think the Prime Minister should take, without waiting for any invitation, should visit these neighboring countries and share our narrative, that what Pakistan can offer to these countries. SAARC as a regional organization has a lot of potential. Second thing is Kartarpura. Now Kartarpura is just one. Kartarpura is the corridor, I think corridors which can bring a reconciliation between Pakistan and India. We can be able to talk. So this is something which we need to look at it. Okay. And from the last thing, I think India and Pakistan should learn from what China has been doing as you know, to coexist. It has been, with all its problems, border problems with India, China, India have been able to forge a relationship. I think it's time for us to move ahead, let Pakistan and India learn from what's happening in the region and coexist and improve relations. We can never be friends, at least we can coexist as neighbors.
Right. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Mr. Kiani, pleasure having you on the show. Brigadier Saeed, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Basit, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
That's all from today's show. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.